Hello, this is the video for March the 24th, and before starting into the topic that I really want to share with you today, let me tell you about something that just dawned on me today when my partner showed me a letter from his employer. They are producing special parts for respiratory machines. Basically, they are making it happen that people can survive the epidemic and severe cases of the coronavirus infection. So when I come to think of it, my partner is actually contributing on a daily basis by going to work and then doing his task to get us over this epidemic on a global level safely, and I'm tremendously proud of him for that, and it's a great thing to know and have in mind. And I want to share with you an article that I read in the Harvard Business Review, and that's an interview with David Kessler, who used to be the colleague of the famous Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who is a huge expert on grief. And this interview with him shows some notions that are good to keep in mind when we encounter the current situation. The title of this article is "The Discomfort You're Feeling is Grief." And let me now read it, at least some parts of it for you. When it comes to feelings, he says, if we can name it, perhaps we can manage it, the feeling. We turn to David Kessler for ideas on how to do that. He's a world foremost expert on grief, and what he says, yes, we are feeling a number of different griefs. We feel the world has changed, and it has. We know this is temporary, but it doesn't feel that way, and we realize things will be different. Just as going to airports is forever different from how it was before 9/11, things will change, and this is the point at which they changed. The loss of normalcy, the fear of economic toll, the loss of connection, this is hitting us, and we are grieving collectively. We are not used to this kind of collective grief in the air. He's saying that this is a so-called anticipatory grief. Anticipatory grief is that feeling we get about what the future holds when we are uncertain. Usually it centers on death. We feel it when someone gets a dire diagnosis and when we have the normal thought that we will lose a parent someday. We know that there is a storm coming, that something bad is happening out there. With a virus, this kind of grief is so confusing for people. Our primitive mind knows something bad is happening, but you can't see it. This breaks our sense of safety. We are feeling that loss of safety. I don't think we collectively lost our sense of general safety like this, ever. Individually or as smaller groups, perhaps people have felt this, but all together this is new. We are grieving on a micro and at a macro level. Understanding the stages of grief is a start, but whenever I talk to people about the stages of grief, I have to remind people that these stages aren't linear and may not happen in this order. It's not a map, but it provides some scaffolding for this unknown world. There is denial, which we say a lot of early on. This virus won't affect us. There is anger. You're making me stay at home and taking away my activities. There is bargaining. Okay, if I social distance for 2 weeks, everything will be better, right? And there is sadness. I don't know when this will end. And finally, there is acceptance. This is happening. I have to figure out how to proceed. Acceptance, as you might imagine, is where the power lies. We find control in acceptance. I can wash my hands. I can keep a safe distance. I can learn how to work virtually. And anticipatory grief is the mind going to the future and imagining the worst. To calm yourself, you want to come into the present. This will be familiar advice to anyone who has meditated or practiced mindfulness, but people are always surprised at how prosaic this can be. You can name 5 things in the room. There's a computer, a chair, a picture of the dog, an old rug, and a coffee mug. It's that simple. Breathe. Realize that in the present moment, nothing you have anticipated has happened. In this moment, you're okay. You have food, you're not sick. Use your senses and think about what you feel. The desk is hard. The blanket is soft. I can feel the breath coming into my nose. This really will work to dampen some of that pain. And he goes on to say that the other day a coworker got very snippy with me, and I thought, that's not like this person. That's how they are dealing with this. I'm seeing their fear and anxiety, so be patient. Think about who someone usually is and not who they seem to be in this moment. One particularly troubling aspect of this pandemic is the open-endedness of it. This is a temporary state. It helps you to say it. I worked for 10 years in a hospital system. I've been trained for situations like this. I've also studied the Spanish flu. The precautions we are taking are the right ones. History tells us that this is the case. This is survivable. We will survive. This is a time to overprotect, but not to overreact. So I did not want to stop at acceptance when I experienced some personal grief. I wanted meaning in those darkest hours, and I do believe we find light in those times. Even now, people are realizing they can connect through technology. They are not as remote as they thought. They are realizing their family members and friends have phones, and they are having long conversations. They are appreciating walks. I believe we will continue to find meaning now and when this is over. So many people have told me in the past week, I'm telling my coworkers I'm having a hard time, or I cried last time. When you name it, you feel it, and it moves through you. Emotions need motion. It's important to acknowledge what we go through. One unfortunate byproduct of the self-help movement is we are the first generation to have feelings about our feelings. Oh yes, sometimes we try not to feel what we are feeling because we have this image of a gang of feelings. If I feel sad and let that in, it will never go away. The gang of bad feelings will overrun me. The truth is a feeling moves through us. We feel it and it goes, and then we go to the next feeling. There is no gang out to get us. It's absurd to think we shouldn't feel grief right now. Let yourself feel the grief and keep going. So that's something that I think it can help us stay on the positive loop. And I also think that today is also another day when I cooked, and unfortunately the zucchini stew that I prepared was labeled as this cucumber stew that doesn't necessarily look that appealing to the eye, but let me reassure you that it does and did taste excellent. And today was also a great day in the sense that I listened to a new podcast for the second time, and I find it extremely encouraging that there are other people like myself who think that habits are really important. This podcast is led by two translators based in the United States, Veronica and Madalena, and they are not only excellent experts, and you can look it up. You will know who of them is a Russian translator and who of them is a Portuguese, Spanish into English translator, and which of them is an ATA board director. But what I want to share with you is that if you are looking for some useful habits as a freelancer, or now when you are confined at home and you have to work remotely, I think that this is great. And I had a chat with a friend of mine, and I received a phone call while we were talking, and I had to tell her that, oh my gosh, this is a client, this is a phone call for work. And she started laughing, and she says, wow, this is a sentence I haven't heard for weeks. So that's all about for today, and hope to see you tomorrow. Take care.